and these discoveries made scientists regret forever. It might sound strange, but not every discovery that shakes the world is a reason for pride. Often, what we see in the headlines is just the tip of the iceberg. Behind it, there are mistakes, confusions, and secrets few dare to reveal. Curious, isn't it? Just imagine, renowned scientists, dedicating their lives to understanding the universe, end up stumbling on blunders so big they could rewrite history, if anyone dared to talk about them. In this video, you'll discover interesting facts, curiosities, and mysteries that science would rather hide. And believe me, some of these stories will challenge everything you think you know about scientific discoveries. Get ready for a journey beyond the textbooks, because what I'm about to share is something very few dare to reveal. In 2011, a group of scientists thought they had made a discovery that could change everything we know about the universe. They believed they had found particles traveling faster than light. Yes, faster than light. This was such a big deal that it could break the laws of physics. It was the kind of news that makes anyone stop and wonder, did we just find something out of this world? The whole world was curious. But then came the cold shower. After carefully checking the data, they realized that the cause of all the excitement was a loose cable. That's right. A single unplugged wire made it look like they had broken the rules of the universe. A simple hardware error that became a behind-the-scenes joke in the world of science. This is one of those interesting facts that show how even the top experts can make simple mistakes. It's like preparing an amazing dish but forgetting to turn on the oven. What was supposed to be the biggest discovery of the century turned into a major embarrassment. The headlines disappeared as fast as they came, and barely anyone talks about it anymore. But they should, because this kind of curiosity reveals the human side of science. It shows that behind the lab coats and numbers, there are people trying to get it right, even if they sometimes make silly mistakes. And what's strange, and kind of funny, is that a loose cable almost made humanity believe we had discovered a new way to understand time and space. In the end, no one likes to remember this fail. The discovery was debunked, and silence took over. Many chose to pretend it never happened. But mistakes like this teach us something important. Even the greatest minds can mess up. And when they do, the whole world feels it. This episode didn't make it into history books, maybe out of shame or just because it was too awkward. But it leads us straight into another embarrassing moment. One where NASA itself announced it had found life on Mars, and then had to take it back. And that story, my friend, will really make you raise your eyebrows. This is one of those stories that sounds made up, but it really happened. Back in 1996, NASA called a global press conference to announce something that felt straight out of a sci-fi movie. They had found signs of life on Mars. More specifically, in a meteorite that had landed on Earth, coming directly from the red planet. Inside the rock, they found tiny structures that looked like fossilized bacteria. It was chaos. Headlines everywhere, interviews, scientists treated like rock stars. Felt like a historic moment, something that could change everything we knew about the universe. But soon after, reality hit. Other scientists examined the same meteorite and came to a very different conclusion. Those bacteria were just natural formations caused by chemical reactions. No life, no aliens, just rock. The reaction, awkward silence. NASA, which had been thrilled just days before, suddenly didn't want to talk about it. This is one of those curious moments when excitement takes over science's usual caution. And honestly, it's understandable. The idea of discovering life beyond Earth taps into something deep. Our imagination, our beliefs, our sense of wonder. But in this case, the rush to announce turned into a stain that's hard to erase. It was like telling everyone you won the lottery, only to realize you read the wrong numbers. The impact was so big that even today, some people still believe NASA found life on Mars. The confusion spread so fast that the myth stuck, even after being debunked. What's really interesting is how emotional science can be. Behind all the formulas and machines, there are people dreaming, hoping, wanting to see something amazing happen. And sometimes that hope gets ahead of the facts. This episode is a great example of how a discovery can turn into a global embarrassment in just a few days. And the worst part, nobody really talks about it anymore. It's not in school books, not in documentaries. But it's one of those facts that says a lot about the human side of science. And if you think this story is strange, wait until you hear about the time scientists accidentally destroyed living beings that had been around long before any human walked the earth. Science has the power to uncover amazing things. But sometimes, it also makes mistakes no one wants to talk about. One of the most curious and almost unbelievable cases happened in 2006. When researchers found a mollusk called Ming, living deep in the ocean. When they analyzed it, they discovered it was about 600 years old. That's right. It was born around the year 1400, before Brazil was even discovered. But here's the thing, to measure its age, the scientists killed it. That's right. The oldest known animal in the world was destroyed without anyone realizing what they were doing. A simple mistake that erased a tiny part of Earth's history. And the most shocking part, by the time they found out, it was already too late. And that wasn't the only case. Back in 1964, a student cut down a tree in Nevada, USA, during a research trip. It looked like just another tree, but when he counted the rings in the trunk, he realized he had cut down the oldest tree ever recorded. Over 4,800 years old. That tree had been standing since the time the Egyptian pyramids were being built. It was an irreversible loss. A mistake that should have never happened, but it did. And you know what's strange? These historical facts are barely mentioned. It's like they were quietly erased. Maybe because they're too embarrassing or just too hard to explain. But these kinds of curiosities show how rushing to find answers can sometimes come at a very high cost. So what do these two cases have in common? They reveal science's fragile side, the one no one likes to show. These are events that don't make it into the headlines or documentaries, but they say a lot about how we treat time, nature, and knowledge. Sometimes, in our rush to understand the world, we end up destroying pieces of it. And these stories aren't in textbooks or taught in schools. They're hidden, as if they never happened. But when we look closely, we see that some of science's greatest mysteries aren't just out in space or deep in a lab. They're also found in the mistakes we'd rather forget. And speaking of forgotten things, there's a decades-old error in computer code that still causes problems around the world. And it all started with a single line. Sometimes a small mistake can cause a huge mess. That's exactly what happened back in 1960, when a programmer named Tony Hoare created the concept of null. Basically, a way to say something is empty or undefined. At the time, it seemed like a quick, smart, and practical solution. But no one could have imagined that this tiny detail would become one of the biggest nightmares in computer history. Tony himself later called it the billion-dollar mistake. And he wasn't kidding. Since then, this idea has caused crashes in banking systems, frozen phones, internet outages, and even bugs in spacecraft. Just one small point in the code. And it still haunts programmers around the world. It might sound like an exaggeration, but it's not. The null reference is behind many of the problems people experience every day, even if they don't realize it. When a website doesn't load right, when an app suddenly shuts down, or when an online payment fails, chances are a null is somewhere in the background. It's like a missing part in a car engine. Everything looks fine on the outside, but one tiny failure can bring the whole system down. And the curious part, even with all our tech progress, this issue still exists. It's been passed down from one generation of programmers to the next, like a silent curse in the world of coding. A mistake so old and common, it's become an inside joke. But not a funny one, since it still costs time, money, and headaches. This is one of those interesting facts that shows how decisions made today can affect the future in ways no one sees coming. When Tony Hoare created Null, he thought he was making things easier. Instead, he introduced a problem that became part of the foundation of everything we use today. And what's even more curious, most people outside the tech world have never even heard of it. It's one of those digital mysteries hiding behind the screens we use every day. And just like this quiet error that still affects us, there's another mistake, much more visible, that was taught in schools for over a century, even though it was completely wrong. All because of a dinosaur that never actually existed. It's curious to think that for over 100 years, millions of kids learned about a dinosaur that never actually existed. Its name, Brontosaurus. One of the most famous for sure. Big, long-necked, with the face of a gentle giant. It became a character in cartoons, toys, and school books. But what few people know is that Brontosaurus was actually a mistake. And a forced one at that. Back in the late 19th century, two rival paleontologists were in a real bone war, trying to discover more species than the other. In the middle of this competition, one of them took fossils from different dinosaurs, pieced them together as if they were one, and created Brontosaurus. That's right, a complete mix-up. This interesting fact stayed hidden for decades, even after other scientists realized that Brontosaurus was just a mashup of fossils. Nobody wanted to bring it up. Why? Because the name had become too popular. It was too late. Books had already been printed, museums already had their signs, and the dinosaur had become an icon. And so came the dilemma. Fix the mistake or pretend everything was fine. Most chose the latter. For convenience. For shame. And because they didn't want to admit that for so long, they had been teaching something wrong. This says a lot about how science is also made by people with egos, pride, and sometimes a refusal to back down even when faced with historical facts. What's most curious is that even today, some people still believe Brontosaurus was real. And this shows how a mistake, when repeated enough times, ends up becoming the truth in people's minds. It's one of those mysteries of knowledge. How a lie can survive for generations just because everyone chose to accept it. But this story isn't just about a made-up dinosaur. It's about how we deal with the truth, and what we choose to forget. After all, how many other things we learned in school might not be exactly as we were told? And since we're talking about discoveries scientists wish never happened, wait until you see what we have prepared for you in the introduction. Did you already know about any of these discoveries scientists wish they could forget? Which one surprised you the most? Leave your thoughts in the comments. Your opinion might help us uncover even more incredible mysteries. Could there be other hidden discoveries out there, waiting to be revealed? Science is full of curiosities and historical facts that never make it into the textbooks. And only those who stay tuned truly understand these mysteries. If you want to keep exploring this world of discoveries, mistakes, and secrets, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. That way, you won't miss a thing and will always be up to date with the most curious facts science tries to hide.